Here's why you should play chess. Despite being invented in the 6th century, chess remains to be a very popular game in today's world, especially during the 2020 COVID era, when the Netflix show The Queen's Gambit was published. Contrary to what many people believe, chess is actually a very simple game, with simple rules, but those rules are what make the game complex. So anyone can play. However, what is the objective of chess? Well, the objective of the mighty war game known as chess is to put your opponent's king in checkmate, but we'll get to that later. So, during the opening of the game, the player with the white pieces moves first. He can move his pawns or his knights. Now his pawns can either move one space forward or two space forwards, but the two space rule only applies to the opening move. After white's turn, it's black's turn, and if black moves a pawn diagonal of white's pawn, then white's pawn can take diagonally. That's how pawns take. They only take diagonally. So pieces are arranged rook, knight, bishop, king, queen, bishop, knight, rook. The rook can move horizontally and vertically any spaces until it hits a piece. The bishops, like the rook, can move across the board any amount of spaces, except the bishops only move on the diagonals, and they remain on their specific color for the duration of the game. Bishops take when they run into a piece. Next, knights are one of the special pieces because they move in an L fashion. They move two spaces forward and one space left or right, or they can move one space forward and two spaces left or right, forming an L shape. Another feature of the rook is that they can jump over pieces that take. The queen you can think of as a combination of the rook and the bishop. It can move forward and back, left and right, and diagonal any number of spaces. It takes when it runs into the first piece it touches. Despite the king being the most valued piece on the board, it can only move one space in any direction, forward, back, left, right, diagonal, but one space. It can take any piece in the square next to it except the king. Kings cannot take each other. A check is when a piece is directly attacking the king, and it can be resolved by moving the king out of the way, blocking the path of the attack with another piece, or taking the piece that's threatening the king. A checkmate is when the king is being attacked and there's no way to resolve the check. So what that means is that the king can't move, a piece can't block the threat, and a piece can't take the threat. A stalemate occurs when the king has no other space to move but isn't being attacked directly, like with the rooks here. See how the king can't go in any other space around there without putting itself in check? So in chess, when you're developing your pieces, that means moving them out of their starting position, the king and the rook have a special ability called a castle. It's when they switch places and end up in squares right next to each other, like I'm demonstrating here. Some other special moves pertain to the pawns, that being en passant and promotions. So en passants work by moving your pawn into the enemy's territory in a way where they can jump parallel to your pawn. During this moment, you can only now jump behind their pawn to take their pawn. And promotion works by moving your pawn all the way to the other side of the board. And then you get to choose what you want that pawn to be, whether a rook, knight, bishop, or queen. So, when starting a game of chess, players tend to use an opening, such as the London system, which I'll display in animation here. This again is called development, and you finish development usually by castling, because it's strategically better to move your king away from the center of the board and off to the side. Now moving on to tactics. In this position, my opponent's pawn is attacking my pawn. So, in order to even out the playing field, I move my knight to attack their pawn. This is a big concept to understand, because it can help you in other situations where you have more valuable pieces on the line. For example, imagine the opponent is attacking your rook. So what you can do is put their king in check, since it's the most valuable piece. They'll be forced to move their king as to not lose the game, which saves you a rook. Another tactic is called a pin, and this happens when you have one piece of lower value in front of another piece of high value, and your opponent's piece is attacking your low value piece. This makes it so if you move the low value piece away from the square it's protecting, your opponent will have the ability to take the higher value piece. So it's a pin because that lower valuable piece is stuck, keeping the opponent's piece from taking the higher valuable piece. Finally, the last bit of information you need to know before you go out there is called a fork. And a fork happens when a knight or a pawn or bishop are simultaneously attacking two of your opponent's pieces. Now this usually works best with two high valuable pieces, like I'm presenting on screen. So this creates a dilemma that the opponent has to decide which piece they want to give up. And this is a very powerful tool in order to take high valuable pieces. So in all, chess isn't a very complicated game. It just takes a bit of practice to understand and get the hang of things. However, chess is more than just a game. It's been around since the 6th century, as I said in the beginning. So, people of all ages are playing it every day, and it really unites the generations together, which is why so many people should learn to play chess. And I'm glad you did. Now go have fun.